Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and I have no godly idea what number episode this is. Joining us now, Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze.
That's right, Professor. It's Double B, Bobby Blaze, coming to you. I'm not in a van this week. I'm not in Evansville, Indiana, man. I am outside with a stick and a poke, and I'm waiting for my daddy to come along and give me a push in professional wrestling, man.
Oh.
He sent me a bus ticket, said something about going down and trying out this new territory, you know. So if Daddy says so, I got to go.
Gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. How are you this week, Bobby?
I'm good, man. Good. Yeah, just waiting for that bus ticket.
Yeah. Last week we talked to Brennan. Oh God, I always do this. I forget his last name.
Brennan Martin.
I forget his last name every time. Brennan Martin, about his book Teeny, which was about his grandmother, Teeny Jarrett.
Yes. And I think that episode, first of all, thanks that we had Brendan on here. He done a very good job. The book was excellent. We both really enjoyed the book. Got a lot of good feedback on it. And that may people that's just now tuning in. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to last week's podcast. But that's kind of my reference for, waiting for my push from Daddy,
Yeah.
So we'll get into that, because what are we talking about this week on our episode before we go over some fun notes here and stuff?
Well, this week we're talking about nepotism, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like
I thought you said I was like narcolepsy, what, nepotism?
Yeah. Necrophilia.
Yeah, and you sent me a really little message back on that. We call that a Saturday, and I popped for you. So anyway, no, nepotism, the good and the bad of it. And I think we're going to have a good podcast like we always do about that. But I know we got some notes and stuff to kind of go over. Now, we've recapped last week's episode with Brendan Martin. So you got some news for me you sent to me, and I had to look it up, just one little article that I read, because I think you know about it more than I did.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say what the news is, and there's a reason this kind of stuff stands out to me. Assuming that everything is true, we are dealing with wrestling journalism, which means 50-50,
Yep.
It could be bullshit. It could be 100% legit, but it is leaked out that the WWE is attempting to, or has entered into, an agreement with MLW. And, that could be really cool, because right now you've got AEW who has an agreement with New Japan and with Impact, and something with NWA where they have their champions coming and going from there. And one of the reasons this stands out to me is because Billy Corgan, when he bought NWA, and people were like, well, aren't you buying a dead property? All this kind of stuff. And he was talking about, look, the wrestlers are going to be in the same boat as musicians and actors and everything else. They're going to have to be out promoting themselves and doing things on their own, even if they're under contract somewhere.
Yeah.
And you may see a point where guys on one show are showing up with a different show's belt, which, like in the case of Kenny Omega, I think, putting the TNA Impact title on him, it kind of gets a little bit stronger than where it was left off at without it, because now you've got at least the shared histories, and you got a guy who looks legit as hell, because he's carrying around, 4 belts right now?
Yeah, I guess he has several.
Yeah. So, in this case with the MLW, first, it's interesting to see the WWE break their nobody but us exists rule. And then also the possibility, because they still have a ton of guys under contract who aren't going on shows and things. This will open up an opportunity maybe for them to go work on MLW shows.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, is just then I was thinking also the MLW guys, if they get a chance to go on NXT or something, showing up on those shows. But I think it's like you said, with today, the way things are, with the world just, not talking about the pandemic world, just talking about the world of like entertainment and more specifically, our product, professional wrestling.
Yeah.
This should give a lot of guys a lot more opportunity. I think it's a good time that if you're if obviously if you're already with one of them companies, and with social media, like with all these media outlets, not just the television product, but YouTube channels and things like that, Facebook Live, etc. The only so I think it's good. The only thing I hope doesn't happen is that either WWE talent goes to, or NXT, what have you, under contract, goes there and to MLW, and I don't think this part will happen. They get buried in the shuffle there, but I think it's more likely that if a couple guys from MLW, jump over to NXT exclusively or something, they get buried in the shuffle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if they can keep the products separate, that this is NXT, this is MLW, but when those two talents exchange, they are acknowledging, like you said, that's what to me really that whole thing about WWE saying, "Oh, nothing else exists except for us," policy kind of thing. No wrestling history other than what we put out there or what have you. But I think that's the only thing is if a couple guys think, oh, and you should be shooting for the work for these big companies. You know what I'm saying? If you're out there as a wrestler, you're an independent contractor, and you got a chance to get a contract, you only have a limited amount of time, limited windows, a space, a window there that you have to make your money. Hopefully you're staying healthy and getting a push and all those good things that can come with it. I just hope they don't think that WWE is the better product or what have you, and they jump exclusively there, then get caught in a shuffle, and then 2 years down the line you don't know where so and so went.
Right.
I just hope that doesn't happen to anyone. But I think as Paul Orndorff told me before, the cream of the crop always rises to the top, and I think Macho Man may use that his thing, but we was in a shoot interview just talking, Paul and I were. And so you have to get yourself over, like you said, Bill Corgan was talking about everyone being involved, musically, television, acting or wrestling or what have you. You got to get yourself over, man. And the more exposure you get, good exposure, and I think both of those obviously have good exposure, especially the NXT product. The MLW, I think now, are they just on YouTube only, or
some channel has a deal with him? I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head.
Well, I hope that happens. Something good though, that they get the exposure they need, so we know who the players are.
Oh yeah, well they've got. I've seen a little bit of their stuff. I keep meaning to watch more because first off, their show kind of reminds me of an old school wrestling show from like the 80s, where it feels like the first time you saw WCCW, where it's just like, oh shit, who are these guys? This is really cool, that kind of thing.
It's been a couple years since I watched it, and I did watch about 3 programs. Going through a drive-through one day, and a guy said, "Hey man, have you seen this MLW?" And he told me a couple people, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but I did watch it, and I enjoyed it actually.
Yeah,
had a good feeling to it. I'll say that. Had a good feeling.
Well, Kevin Von Erich's kids are there as a tag team. There's a guy working there. I don't know what the current angles are, but he's a former MMA guy, or also an MMA guy. I don't remember. Filthy Tom Waller, and he's entertaining as hell. And he, instead of being built like a bodybuilder, he's built like a fighter.
Yeah, and I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and he looks legit as shit in the ring. So I think there's some good stuff, and
he did MMA. Yeah, he's legit.
Yeah, and it's a product. I hate using that term. It's a wrestling program I need to watch more of.
Okay. Well, fans, if you're out there, let us know what you think about that, man. I think it's a good thing. The way you worded that, WWE had that no one else exists policy, that's pretty good. That's kind of true,
Yeah.
But now they, but how would they acknowledge it on TV? We'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly.
This is their champion from another company. I could see MLW saying WWE or NXT or whatever, but I don't know if they'll be doing it reverse. Might not be a fair trade. I just hope something like what was it, ECW and I think Evolution both just eventually got bought out by WWE. So does Vince just put the word out that, hey, we're going to do a deal with them, then all of a sudden like, well, we got enough money, let's buy all their contracts, and hell, kind of like did WCW, get buy the product, buy the programming. I don't know.
Well, I think the world is too small for that now. You know what I mean?
Hope so.
Because just think about, and then we're kind of getting off on a rant.
Yeah.
Think about the amount of choices you have when it comes to viewing media. just the streaming services and YouTube and your Facebook channels and Twitch. And I mean, there are a lot of ways to put something together visually and get it out there. Look, I know guys that have sold movies or a movie script by doing a very, very short version of the movie as a multiple YouTube clip.
Yeah.
You know, it's doable. I mean, you could do a wrestling program, release it one match at a time on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, there are ways around it. So I just think the world is too small for big wrestling companies to act like they're the only wrestling in the world.
Yeah. There's probably fans listening right now that I would imagine are MLW fans, much like they are AEW, whatever, but do not watch the WWE product. You know, I don't know, and vice versa. Same thing with Impact or Ring of Honor or what have you. So anyway, I put on there, you kind of mentioned it, wrestling journalism sucking right now because it's like 50-50. Mm-hmm. I just read the one article and I was like, well, here's two misspelled words and here's the word ran into each other. I'm like, come on, this is like, cage side seats or something. I'm like, man, a lot of people read this, come on.
Where's your editors? Yeah.
Yeah, give me something, man. I mean, we all make mistakes, of course, but I'm like, but when I read the story, I didn't come away knowing really. They just went on about a couple other people. I won't mention any names particularly, but it was just like, okay, that had nothing to do with the WWE and MLW working together. You know what I'm saying? It's like they mentioned a couple people and their side problems. I'll say that. They just brought up a couple people's problems. And I was like, oh, man, that didn't have anything to do with that story.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying it's 50-50 or whatever. Like, that sucked. Well, I'll mention the one because I felt bad about it. And that was, Mickey James got her stuff delivered in plastic bags to her home, I guess.
Yeah, garbage bags.
Garbage bags. It mentioned that in the article. But that had nothing to do with, and then the other thing was a political thing I won't get into. But I'm like, those two people and stories are complete stories on their own. They have nothing to do with WWE and MLW. So I was like, come on, man. I want to walk away from the article knowing something a little bit more, Which brings me to another topic, so we'll get off this rant there. AC Slater having a match. Mario Lopez. We talked about this a little bit off the air. What do you think about that, man?
Well, I mean, like we were saying, he was a high school wrestler. He was a good high school wrestler.
Yeah.
I think he was 7th in the state his graduating year was what I read. Obviously, he's in great shape for his age. He's the same age I am, and I'm falling the fuck apart. He looks like, he looks great. He stayed in great shape. It's something he wants to do, and I think you were telling me it's something his kids, or he wants to do it for his kids.
He said, I just caught a clip of Jerry Lawler saying that he should go for it. Well, it actually came from Mario Lopez's podcast. Of course, everyone knows who I'm talking about, Saved by the Bell actor. But said he asked Jerry the King Lawler, for some advice. And he basically said, Jerry, they're trying to get me to do something in the ring. For my kids, I think I want to do it. Get in there as a storyline. He says, I'm almost 48 years old, but I'm in pretty good shape and athletic. Any suggestions? And he said, by the way, I grew up wrestling too. And Lawler, it said, Hall of Fame Lawler, blah. He said, I'd go for it. He said, if that's something that if that's a bucket list or lifelong dream to get in the ring and do something with the WWE superstars, I would definitely say go for it. And, he said, trust me, they love interaction with superstars like yourself. Of course, he's putting them over, Mm-hmm. And I think that's great because he has that background. And if he has that chance, I'm not saying he needs a, main event WrestleMania next year. I'm not saying he needs to go in and get this huge Goldberg push that Goldberg got at age 50 or what have you, because he had all that prior, worldwide recognition from WCW and stuff. Right. But if he can go in and do something on a storyline, it'd probably be pretty fun. Oh, yeah. I hope his arms are bigger than Snoop Dogg's. Snoop Dogg got in there and done something, So, yeah, if they make it, I don't know. All right, Professor. Mm-hmm. I think AC Slater could do all right because of his background, and I think it'd be good, hot, tooey entertainment for a lot of his fans.
You know
and
that's what they're
WWE
going to.
fans,
You know that's what they're going to call it. They're going to talk about it sports entertainment. They're not going to call it wrestling.
Yes. So I just thought it's funny,
So-
Screech could beat him maybe. I don't know.
I don't think Screech can beat much of anybody these days.
Not these days, but what about Zach Morris? He can come out and form a tag team together? I don't know.
Well, maybe.
But AC Slater's going to do this. He's going to put some eyeballs on a TV screen or your, streaming, the Peacock or whatever you're doing, network, whatever, he's going to put some eyes on it, especially female eyes,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pussy getting machine, man.
Yeah,
he was.
Look at his wives or ex-wives or whatever. Yeah, that's a list. But I could see him in it. And like you were saying, he's more believable throwing a knockout shot than say like Jon Stewart from The Daily Show was.
Yeah.
Or Regis Philbin or whoever when they grab these like out of shape 180-pound guys and have them like knock out one of their big stars. But I can see it. What the hell? And you got the opportunity. Well, why not do it?
Yeah. I think it'd be good for him. Like you said, even for his kids. If that's what he wants to do, hell, go for it, man. That's what I say too. So anyway, you think we ought to get to this podcast? Do we have any other notes? Oh, I have a note for you, Jeremy.
Oh, okay.
I told you this off air. Let me go over my notes here real quick, folks. By the time you hear this. Which will drop on either late Monday night, but probably Tuesday morning. I think that's the 4th. It's supposed to debut on May the 6th is the season 3 premiere of Dark Side of the Ring. And man, I saw part 1 last night of the Brian Pillman. If someone dropped it on YouTube, I don't know who, I don't know how it happened. I just was flipping through my YouTube and it popped up. And I have to say, man, it's a dark side of it. But I sit there and I said, do I want to watch this at this time? Because I was all stoked. I watched the Kentucky Derby. Shout out to Louisville, Kentucky, in a great great Commonwealth of Kentucky. We represented ourselves well yesterday on international television, and shout out to Medina Spirit who won. I had that horse. I liked that horse for some reason, but it won. A Bob
Really?
horse.
You had that one?
Well, yeah, I watched footage on Wednesday and Thursday night, then I did a recap Friday. I love horse racing. I just, I did not get my bet in.
Okay.
But I know some people that did, and that does my heart good because across the board, it paid about $45 and $10 across the board. You got a pretty good payday, about $240, maybe something like that, $215, something like that. So on a $10 win, place, and show, that's not bad money. But anyway, back to the Pillman thing. I was like, do I want to watch this or not? And I did because I was like, okay, I'm going to have it'll probably be taken down by now. But it was on YouTube late Saturday evening, and it was Brian Pillman Part 1 of The Dark Side of the Ring, and it's supposed to premiere on Vice TV. They're doing an all-day marathon on Vice on May the 6th leading up to Season 3, the opener of this one. And I'll just say this, it's pretty damn dark. A lot of stuff out there. Brian Pillman, man, it's just it's very good though. They done the program. We was talking off air. As far as you can tell, them telling the truth. They didn't pull any punches about who they had on here and what was going on.
Yeah.
It's like wow. Whew. Anyway, for you fans that like that stuff, I hope you enjoy it. Again, it may still be on there by the time you hear this, but if not, it'll be, up on the Vice TV on the 6th. So I think that was pretty much all I wanted to get at on my notes there. So I just wanted to kind of let our fans know about it.
Yeah,
most of them probably do anyway. But
well, that Dark Side of the Ring has been a heavy hitter since its initial release and the whole time along. I have trouble with it just because every time you watch it, fucking how heavy you're getting into. It's just
they they're not doing the happy side of the ring. You know what I'm saying? It's not rainbows and lollipops and butterflies and all the stuff. Is pretty, but I do know they're doing Dynamite Kid. I think that's going to be one of them. They said this is kind of tomfoolery, but I guess they're doing the plane ride from hell, or they're doing one on that. But yeah, they've got, and like I said, Brian Pillman's a two-parter, so that'll be the first couple of weeks, of course. But but yeah, it's just it's doing end in tragedy, man.
Yeah. Hey, did you ever work around him, or was he was gone from WCW by the time you were there?
Yeah, he was gone.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I spoke to him on the phone twice. A friend of mine lived in Cincinnati, was doing some managing classes with Roy Bass, and they put them on a show together, on a radio show together, whatever, fuck, I can't remember the name of the show now. Anyway, back in the day. And so we was thinking if we could try to bring Pillman in, for an independent show where I was doing some of those smaller towns that Smoky Mountain had done,
Yeah.
And we just spoke for probably 5 minutes or so, and he was out of our price range, and he was already pretty much negotiating with, working for ECW and doing some independent stuff, and pretty much was setting up. When you watch this, you'll see what I'm talking about. He was pretty much setting up a run with WWF at the time,
Yeah.
He kind of played, not to give anything away, but he was, when you watch the show, you'll see, so you'll know the time period. He was doing some independents and making appearances, and like I said, I spoke to him very briefly, just to see, because Les Thatcher was running some shows, and I don't know if he was going to do anything. He's in the Cincinnati area, and we had done some work down there, and basically we just spoke. He would have not known me or anything. Other than he said, hey, nice talking to you, but I'm not interested, not right.
Yeah,
what I'm saying? It was very professional, and it was after his accident, of course, too, so... but no, I did not know him. No personal reactions or anything. Now, I have seen his son work, and man, he's pretty damn good. Brian Pillman Jr. is pretty damn good. I watched a couple of his matches live prior to this pandemic, and he's on a little bit of the short side, but he's got a great build, and he's got a hell of a in-ring presence and wrestling ability. So I do hope he does well.
You know why I think he's going to make a great wrestler?
No.
Well, look at his hair, Bobby.
Yeah. Okay. Great mullet. There you go.
I don't think you or Bobby Eaton or anybody else get anywhere near that mullet.
Yeah. Well, maybe Theo Vaughn can.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. Yeah. All right, man. Let's get into the show. Nepotism, the good and the bad, and maybe the ugly.
Maybe the ugly.
Maybe the ugly. We got a good starting point here. You want to start us off, because it's going to kind of go with the recap of last week that we had Brendan on when he was talking about
oh my God,
Nick Goulas. So who do we have as our first good nepotism in a wrestling business?
The story in the book, I'm going to let you set this up, but our first person we're going to talk about is George Goulas, son of Nick Goulas.
Yeah. Woo. So I guess from everything I've read and heard, the stories, and prior to reading Teeny last week, the story, he wasn't Nick said, this boy's going to be a star because he's watched it all of his life,
Mm-hmm.
and that just because you watch basketball doesn't mean you're going to play in the NBA, or because you watch NASCAR mean you're a NASCAR driver, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But Nick's wanted to push him to the moon, and put him up against guys that were much more talented than he was and shouldn't have been in the ring with, putting him over, not necessarily just putting him in the ring with him, but putting him over. I know that the story in the book, they brought Harley Race in, and
this is the one that kills me.
Yeah, this one here. So Harley's in there and he's trying to carry the guy, but he's like, I'm Harley Race, and I can't be doing certain things, and so I guess he basically was just to give him a little bit of beat down and let him come back, and he just stopped selling. Finally, Harley quit selling during the middle of the match at some point, because the 60-minute Broadway, if you can believe that, Harley was professional enough to do that for courtesy.
I hope the payday was
good.
The
payoff, exactly.
Yeah.
The payoff's what it was. But he said, Daddy said sell. Daddy said sell. And that just cracked me up, man, because I've heard that story for years, about that. And the other one was, and I heard this from Bobby Eaton, and he was just telling a story. He wasn't saying anything bad. He just said he didn't know any better, something like that. Bobby, he's just one of them guys. He just don't say, you don't hear anything bad about him. He don't say a lot of bad about anyone else. But he was talking about, he had been on one of those trips, and Brendan mentions it in the book, not necessarily one Bobby was on, but the promoter, I can't think who it was, anyway, they went on like a 3-hour trip over to Birmingham, and they stopped to get some gas or get some snacks at a gas station, And they was getting, like the canned veiny weenies or, a couple of soda pops and some chips and stuff like that back in the day. Not like you have these 24-hour convenience stores you have out there on the highways now, but he's getting some road food and stuff. And he calls his dad and he said, "Daddy, we're having a picnic."
God.
And Bobby had told me that they had stopped before and he like a picnic, for him, because he was used to eating in fancy and nice restaurants and stuff, set down meals.
Yeah.
And here they are around the car eating their, bologna blowout, a loaf of bread and a couple of soda pops and a pound of bologna, sharing it amongst them, whatever. And he thinks it's a damn picnic,
Oh,
so,
for him, it was a
should he have
treat.
been pushed or not? That's the thing.
Well,
or even in the business.
So here is the description I think is most apt to him from everything I've heard. He had 2 left feet.
Mm-hmm.
He was all thumbs. His go-to move was a sissy karate chop looking thing, an uncoordinated whatever chop slap thing that nobody looked like it could do anything to. He was apparently gangly, and his dad loved him and pushed the shit out of him. And then on top of it, he had this terrible lisp. So you have to imagine this gangly, all thumbs, 2 left-footed, picnic-loving baloney sucker trying to back Harley Race into a corner with these little fucking, slaps saying, "Daddy said so. Daddy said so." And I'm just trying to imagine, like, Harley Race, like, probably had to restrain himself from killing this guy by accident.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And, I'm surprised, George didn't break his hand trying to chop Harley Race. This is just, and I don't want to make fun of the guy, but like Brennan's book. No. Yeah. Brennan's book, like, goes on to say that I guess George Goulas as a kid had like a full-time man nanny, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who just mothered the shit out of this guy.
Yeah. I kind of brought that up that he was going to the Vanderbilt basketball games, part of the SEC there, and even though I had 2 seats, I guess George sat on that guy's lap some, even as a young man, It's kind of like, Now, he said there's nothing proved, or don't take that the wrong way, folks. We're not saying anything, out of school here. It's not in the book. We're just saying that's kind of really, that guy just really, I can't remember his name, but I guess just really babied him,
Yeah.
He had been babied or pretty much his whole life, I guess,
Yeah, all the way
given to
through.
him.
Yeah, all the way through adulthood.
Yeah, and I guess the good thing is of this, we're starting with that because it's kind of a takeoff last week. We've got some good nepotism stories and a couple, like I said, bad and maybe the ugly. But on that, Nick Goulas obviously loved his son a whole lot. That's the thing. A father's love for his son. So that's the good part of it. But it basically made them Goulas and Jarrett's and Welch's break up as far as split the territory. They wasn't booking George on the Nashville end of the dates. He wasn't getting any Nashville dates or anything in East Tennessee. It was they didn't want to push him out there. Memphis. They didn't want to push him or anything, and wouldn't book him when they brought him up. He wouldn't be booked on the show. So that created some tension, of course. Anyway, let's go with some good stuff. How's that, man?
Yeah, let's you know what? Let's talk about
3 families, and I like this.
Well, let's talk about the Hart family.
Yeah. So you got the dad, Stu, and had the big dungeon up there in Calgary, and he had several children, and a couple of them made it very, very big in the wrestling business. Now, I know when I was in Canada, when I worked with Goldie Rogers and Eddie Watts and some of those guys, they had worked Calgary. They talked about some of the older brothers I didn't, that weren't on mainstream, WWF back in the day or worldwide. They worked in Calgary and some in Canada. Bruce and Ross, I think, Keith, some of the others. So that's like 3. But then, of course, the ones that we knew about were obviously Brett and Owen, and then a few son-in-laws there as well. So anyway, tell us about the good with the Hart family.
Well, okay, so I got to be careful here because I think in Calgary there still might be an arrest warrant for me from the last time we talked about them. Bret Hart
pissed off a lot of Canadians.
I really, really did. My apologies, everybody, especially to Oh, the owner of the CWO up there. I think I pissed him off on Twitter this week too. But
did you?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you know me. Bobby, I had a day at work where a guy made fun of me for wearing a mask, and then he stuffed this paper in my hand, telling me how making him wear a mask was against state law, even though I didn't make him wear a mask. And then he goes, your rules are against the state law. And I said, hey, buddy, fuck you. They aren't my rules. And I turned my back and started to walk away. He said, yes, they are. I said, they're my employer's rules. And I started to walk inside, and he goes, well, pass it on. I said, fuck you. I ain't passing on shit, man. And I threw his papers in the garbage. So then I came home, started reading Twitter, and just immediately started like fucking getting mouthy with people who were shitting on Kenny Omega, because I just don't get it. Like, I get he's not your favorite, but he's far from the worst thing I've ever seen. And I think I may have put my foot in my mouth with the CWO a little bit. So my apologies. Yeah.
But you won't get booked there.
Well, exactly. Not anymore. But the Hart family, Bret Hart, arguably one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, if not at least the last 35 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Owen Hart, probably one of the most dynamic wrestlers, even though I don't think... He's been gone a long time. I don't think people think of him for all the just fucking gravity defying shit and quick moves and just what a fucking star he could have been and should have been. I think those guys, they came out of the dungeon so they could snatch a hold on your ass and, squeeze the shit out of you. And then of course, like you're saying, there's the other brothers and the brother-in-laws and the whole bit. But I would say that dungeon, that family, the people they turned out were stellar.
Yeah. Well, they had Neidhart had a career, with Bret and as a singles. And then you got Dave Boy Smith that married into the family, son-in-laws or brother-in-laws as it may be, So, yeah. And of course, as you said, there's so many good people that come out of the dungeon up there, that trained there at one point, got broken into the business or what have you. But so the nepotism of being a professional wrestler and giving your sons, once they got old enough, of getting them involved into the business and giving them a break, we're going to say, so that's a good side right there with the Hart family for what they put out there for our viewing pleasure, if you will, if you're a professional wrestling fan, because those guys could wrestle, man.
Yeah,
they could wrestle.
And I think because did the WWE had a bought or worked on some deal with Calgary, and that's how.
At one point I think they bought them, and part of the deal was this handful of guys go to WWE.
He's just like
and
Vince,
come back.
Gotta take my sons and give them a job there in New York.
Well, go ahead and do it, Stuart. Of course, everyone knows the cat shit story, right? Everyone knows that, they had the big house up on a hill, and might as well tell this one because it's been around forever. Bruiser Bedlam told me, and of course I'd heard it when I was in Canada, from, like I said, Goldie and Eddie and Leo Burke and guys I worked with. That story was around forever. So he's in, I guess, making a big old breakfast for all the boys, and there's scrambled eggs there, and I guess the cat come up there and shit on the counter, and he takes the spatula, reaches over and flips the cat shit off the counter onto the floor, and then just puts the spatula right back in the eggs and keeps on turning them. So anyway, that might be the toughest hold to kick out of, is eating some scrambled eggs by Stu Hart. I don't know. That story's been around forever, but I don't like cat shit. I don't like cat shit sandwiches, and I don't think I like cat shit eggs either.
Here's the thing, though. I think if you look at Stu Hart's food and you're like, fuck it, I'm not eating, I think that's how you end up in a step over toehold with a face
you're
lock.
Getting stressed for sure. And speaking of cat shit sandwiches, let me tell you something. I think I've told you before, but one of my grandfathers, man, we called him Daddy Bot. You can imagine what Bot is short for bottle. So he'd get on a bender there, and he'd go into the room after about 3 weeks, and he'd yell out my grandmother, Gertrude. He'd say, hey, Gertrude, hey, Gertrude. And he'd be laying in that bed and yelling out, and she'd say, what do you want, Daddy Bot? He'd go, fix me a hamburger. So she'd fix him about a half-ass raw hamburger on 2 slices of white bread. Now, she could cook. I'm just saying that's what she would give him. And, of course, he'd eat it. But she'd say, now, Bot, do you want mayonnaise or mustard on that sandwich? And he'd say, God damn it, Gertrude, I don't care if you put cat shit on it. Just bring me a hamburger. And so about 20 minutes would go by, and he'd yell it out again. And to kind of be redundant here, he'd go, Gertrude, fix me a bologna sandwich. And of course, she'd say, do you want mayonnaise or mustard? And he'd go right through it again. Don't care if you put cat shit on it. Just bring me a bologna sandwich. But anyway, how we got from Stu Hart flipping scrambled eggs with cat shit spatulas to getting stretched in a dungeon, I think the Harts done pretty good for themselves.
I think so, yeah.
And I don't ever think my grandmother put cat shit on a sandwich for Daddy Bot.
I sure hope not, even though it kind of sounds like you might have had it coming.
Yeah.
But I hope not, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
anyway,
so I'm going to go on. Yeah, I'm going to
Yes.
go on to specifically a member of this family, but I'm going to say the Ortons.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
your specific member was who?
Specifically, that's going to be Randy Keith Orton.
Yeah, man, what a talent. What a
Yeah.
talent. Now, see, I didn't see his dad wrestle, but I knew Malenko and Gotch and them knew him. And they discouraged, Bob Sr. discouraged him from training Bob Orton Jr., who I really enjoyed his talent in the ring. He was one of my favorites. We talked about that before. And then, of course, now, third generation, I don't know if anyone is more smooth in the ring than Randy Orton. To see him live, I've seen him live twice, and he is just so fluid and so smooth, it's unreal. You know, what you see on TV does not do him justice as far as how good he actually is in the way he moves around the ring and executes his moves.
Yeah, I mean, his transitions from move to move and his being able to hit that diamond cutter RKO move out of literally anywhere, any position, any height off the ground.
Yeah.
And he can just grab that hold.
Yeah.
Boom.
And I tell you what, we're going to get probably, if you're on Twitter, folks, you can follow me at Bobby Blaze 744, follow the professor at the Geekish Cast, or hit us up, and I bet you people do this, Jeremy. Hit us up at Bell to Bell Blaze, and that's those videos or gifs where Randy Orton can hit that RKO out of anywhere, and it shows them doing ice skaters, and it shows them doing football players and actors and all that. Have you seen some of those where Randy Orton's body's put on there? And they're pretty funny, man, because he can just hit that move out of anywhere. So I bet you we get a couple of those this week sent to us at our site. It's also available on our Facebook at Professor has set up at Bell to Bell Blaze. But someone out there will send us one probably where Randy Orton's hitting that RK out of nowhere. I cannot think of his opponent, but there's one. He is laying there on the mat flat, and he absolutely gets up so quick. And the guy is so close to the mat jumping off the top rope. It's like, I mean, it was just, the timing, it was just so, I'm sure everyone through the years have seen him do that, move when someone's jumping off the top rope, not just the RKO, but to do it when someone's actually up in the air already. Mm-hmm. His timing on that, it took both of them, and I can't honestly remember who I saw him against, but it was just unreal, man. But yeah, a lot of respect for him and that family, obviously, third generation, all three of them, the father, the grandfather, the father, and him have all did well in professional wrestling, I think.
Yeah, and his uncle Barry, who passed away recently.
Right,
well.
We met a couple weeks ago, yes. But yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know that, like I said, from my understanding, Bob Orton Sr. did not want his son involved in professional wrestling. And I think he was going to be a dentist, is what he was supposed to think. I think that's what he's going to do, go to dental school. But I know Malenko and Gotch had a hand in his training early on. And then, of course, his son, I think he was undefeated all throughout high school. Randy, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was undefeated in high school in amateur wrestling. So I don't know that the nepotism necessarily got Bob Sr., how much he helped Bob Orton Jr., and then, of course, it had to be some. Eventually, he had to, soften up some or whatever. So obviously, and if you're listening to the Studcast right now, Bob Orton Jr. is actually up in the Southeastern Territory there, and it's pretty good. I think they're in like 1977 right now, so it's pretty good if you're following that. But then, obviously, Orton Jr. done a lot of work with WWF back in the day, and there was that connection there with probably all the agents, if not Vince himself. And of course, yeah, hey, I've got this talented son. Take a look at him. He goes OVW. I don't know how long he stayed down there. I'm not sure. I've heard Jim talk about it a couple of times, but he did go down there for a little while, and before he made it up to the main roster, what have you. But man, he earned it, because you could again put someone there that has 2 left feet and 2 left thumbs, and see what happens that way. In this case, though, man, what a talented 3rd generation wrestler. It worked out. So.
Just a fantastically gifted guy. Probably not just gifted. He's probably worked really, really, really hard. Yeah. But some of that had to come natural too,
Yeah.
But Bobby, now I got this picture of Cowboy Bob Orton in dentist gear, but with his leather vest over the top and cast on his arm and a cowboy hat, drilling in somebody's mouth and like, so, you like to do any fishing there, Daddy? What'd you do last weekend?
Yeah, man, I tell you what. Has anyone worn a cast longer than Bob Orton Jr.?
35 years as far as I know. No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, I know we're coming up on the last of what we call the good here as we're kind of doing this. And this is one of your favorite families. I think it really...
well, they're definitely a family that I identify with because of what me and my ex-wife went through.
Right.
And I wrote this down as a good, but then this morning I was like, this is mixed at best.
My last night when I read that, I was like, okay. And I appreciate you doing the notes this week. I really do. I had a busy week. Generally, I was, that day you told the guy to go fuck off or whatever. I had a good week. Don't get me wrong, but I had a couple really busy days where you're like, I was thinking, had to do this, had to do that, and I just, you get wound up in other stuff,
Yeah.
And so when I saw this one here, I was like, okay, when you look at the overall picture, it's like, man, just a lot of tragedy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and of course, we're talking about the Von Erichs, folks. And if you're a fan of this program, you probably knew who we was talking about. But I think ultimately it's the good that, the dad had this German gimmick, and then they're all American boys,
Yep.
So when his kids step into the ring, it's kind of mixed, but I'm going to say with the good, because the reason when I figured it all out in my head, what I'm trying to say is this. They got worldwide TV. They, did the Sportatorium and then all the shows you got to see on ESPN with WCCW. And also they were such huge stars over in Israel. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just one of those things where like, okay, let's say while the wave was going up before it crashed, and then ultimately crashed, I think it's good because, I'm just going to say it again, a lot of good pro wrestling, professional wrestling, and you were entertained by it.
Yeah.
And you were intrigued by it, and you followed it, and you watched it, and you were like, this is good stuff. This is professional wrestling, So, yeah, we'll keep it on the good side.
Well, yeah, but we'll focus on that, but we're not going to shy away from the other too much. But, but look at, so David Von Erich, Kerry Von Erich, and Kevin Von Erich, the three oldest who went into wrestling. Mm-hmm. All of them in their own way were outstanding athletes. I mean, David, if rumors can be believed, was getting primed for an actual NWA champion run.
Yeah.
I question that a little bit just because the NWA champion didn't sit on faces very long, but whatever, they were going to do it. Kerry Von Erich, if everything you hear is true, is one of the best natural athletes to ever go into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Not only that, you could tell chicks went fucking berserk every time he went to the mall, just having panties thrown at him everywhere he went. And then Kevin Von Erich, who probably has one of the stiffest face kicks I've ever seen. But that standing body scissor, he had a great look. They all look like great athletes. Just so we don't squander it, though, of course, at the same time, there was Mike and Chris, who were not great athletes or not as great athletes as their brothers. And then there was something we're going to dig into next
Yeah.
week. There was this thing with Lance, who
Right.
was sort of the cousin Oliver.
Yeah, the worked cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of the
cousin
whole-
Oliver. Good reference there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I know that from what we've read that, I don't know how much Mike, maybe he wanted I don't know, he was in between it, but from my understanding, I guess Chris just really wasn't gifted at all size-wise and everything. He really idolized Kerry.
Yeah.
And so maybe it wasn't so much that he was pushed into it or anything like that, as opposed to, I don't know how hard David was pushed or Kevin. And I know Kevin has listened to our program and give him a shout out. He listens to us he has listened to us, and we gave his family a shout out on Twitter.
Yeah.
So if anyone out there, let him know, we speak highly of him and his family. We're just going over this, but so I don't know though, but I know Kerry from a young age. He was a track and field star, and he threw a discus, of course, and ended up doing that, Texas Tornado, discus puncher, what have you. Being a great athlete, as you mentioned. So I think the older ones seemed like they wanted to go into it. Obviously, I'm not so sure, was given that big push and they ran with it from their dad.
Yeah.
Daddy said sell. Daddy, by God, you go sell for the Von Erichs. They're going over.
Yep.
Daddy said we're going over. That's pretty much it. And I don't know too much about like Mike and Chris, how much their heart, was into it or gifted they were compared to the other three, And if you look at David, he was a real big guy, man. He was big. There's some footage of him from Texas and from Florida. So, I don't know about the stories about the NWA deal, like you said, because of the faces. But I think he was definitely in the talks there at one time. I really do. And Fritz being with the NWA there,
Well, Fritz was a 2-time NWA president. I mean, he could have made it happen. But
and then with Kerry, he just, kind of a tribute to, we've talked about that before. Excuse me, I hit my mic there. Tribute to, in honor of David, maybe, or just the Von Erichs in general, being in NWA and selling out stadiums. He was an NWA champion for a short while. Unfortunately, he wasn't at his best sometimes and had a short run.
Yeah.
But again, you got it on a baby face. You got that title on a baby face, and it tends to go better when you got it on the heel and the baby face are chasing that title.
It's all in the chase.
So, yeah. And the build-ups, as we've talked about, some programs take, back in the day, took 9-18 months, and you run it all the way through from the singles match to the interference to eventually the cage match or what have you, or in this case, eventually a world title. So I don't know that he just had a short build-up to it, basically, and a good short run, and boom, that's it,
Yeah.
But anyway... nepotism. I say for the most part, good. Let's ride that. It's up on the top of the wave. You know what I'm saying? Let's stay up on top of the wave with that family.
Yeah, Fritz had a hell of a deal going, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to take my kids, and they're going to be the stars." And look, we already brought up one promoter who said that, and then just shit the bed.
Right.
Fritz said it, and his kids were talented, gifted athletes and looked great. And
they ran with it, man.
And they ran with it. And like you said, they were the #1 wrestling program in Israel. They were syndicated all over the world. They were huge stars. Just go sometime and look at when they bring a Von Erich to the ring in Dallas.
Yeah.
And count how many chicks are in that audience.
Yeah.
And then go look at a WWE match today with a half empty fucking seating and the fact that the entire Geek Squad from every Best Buy is sitting in there. It's a whole different thing that they brought to the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. When we first started talking, and you painted kind of that same picture of Kerry Von Erich going to the ring, or to Kerry and Kevin going to the ring, and just it's almost like Tom Jones in Vegas getting panties thrown at him. It's basically they're walking that ring, and it's all them young girls, man, and it's just mayhem with them, man. They're over, and it just they had that all American. Hey, that's they were just over. So we put that with the good. Let's leave it at that. Because we're going to get into a couple of the bad. Now, we're not speaking bad about these people who are talking shit. We're just going to mention a couple names.
The results are bad, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Now, my first one, I kind of questioned Jeremy on it. Now, who do you think was the first that you put on this list? Now, again, it's not a bad person, necessarily nothing like that. We're just talking about, okay, when your dad or your family's in charge of a business, and you say, well, I'm going to hire my son or my daughter, and this is the way it's going to be, So everyone can figure that part out. So
the person
anyway.
I put down here first, and this isn't a slam on them, it is literally just that Daddy put me in the ring, and I'm sure he's a better athlete than I know, but Greg Gagne, when you look at when he was really getting pushed in the AWA, and look at him compared to Brunzell, Jesse Ventura, the other guys who were big stars there. Hell, he even put him next to his dad, and his dad's just like old school, like normal athletic build.
Yeah, he had that. You tell old man strength to him still. Good, solid build. I don't think it's a reflection of necessarily when I put, was he really bad? These were talking points. I don't think that was necessarily he was bad. I just think, if you look at his size, he's actually a pretty good sized guy.
Well, compared to me, he's big, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But with the crew he's with, he's just average at best,
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with interviews and stuff. All those guys, when you got guys up there like Bockwinkel that can talk, Bobby Heenan that can talk. I mean, we went through that list before. It's hard when you get that interview time, to be up there with those guys, for your spot. We talked about, I think the year 1978, him and Brunzell were the tag team champions. We did that year in review. And I hope we revisit some more years like that in the future. We had such a good time on those podcasts.
Oh, that's fun. We got to do that soon.
It was really fun. Yeah. So, but anyway, just saying, it wasn't that he was that bad. It's just like, but Daddy's going to push him, you know. And me probably, and that group, like I said, mentioning all those guys and more, of course, it's hard to say. Like you said, to you, he was a big guy. To the average fan, he was a big guy. But compared to the guys he's working with, he's not that big of a guy.
Yeah, standing in the ring, he does not look big.
And interviewing and promos, and things like that. So it's like, okay, mid-card at best, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you think like his brother-in-law, Larry Z, just look at the difference in mic work from one to the next.
Yeah. And ring work, my God.
Yeah.
Larry Z, I mean, come on, spud heads out there. You know what I'm saying? What do you call people, spud heads or something?
Was it spud? It was something spuds, yeah.
Spud, what was it? Spudnoids or something. I can't remember. But yeah, there you go. Interview. Larry wasn't overly big, of course. He was big. Don't get me wrong. Hell, he was a 500-pound bencher back in the time. I'm just saying. But not that big, huge bodybuilding, you know what I'm saying? Just, but talker, wrestling ability. I mean, fuck, he beats his teacher, his mentor, and he becomes the legend,
Could never go to New York again, as I hear it.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
But so you got all that around you, so it's kind of hard to give credit to that push being justified when you to say it's bad. I think people understand what we're getting at. It's not that he's that bad. It's just that look at the competition around you, kid.
Yeah. Well, and it's that thing too. It's the perception. It's Greg Gagne's tag team champion. Of course he is. His dad owns the company. I think that's part of the reason Macho Man went by Savage instead of Poffo too.
Yeah, and I also Savage got that name in baseball because he was such a savage when he hit. They said,
Yeah.
And but yeah, there's another example of nepotism. But I know with ICW, the Poffos they ran out of Lexington, Kentucky. They ran the ICW. They had several other people that bought into it at 10%. I know several people through the years that did, but the main one was, Angelo and his wife, Judy. And Angelo wrestled as the Miser, and Judy wrestled as Lady Satan. And then, of course, you had the Macho Man, Randy Savage, but you had Leaping Lanny Poffo. And so those characters, were, they were real people. But I remember when everyone found out that Leaping Lanny, his real brother, was the Macho Man, and they put that on TV, and it played out really well on TV, and I think Randy, see how it went. Poffo, when people found out for real, they put it into an angle that they were brothers. People didn't want to believe it. People did believe it, etc. So Lanny comes out with a picture and says, I can prove that you're my brother because I have his family picture. I think, but I have a picture of, he said, I have a picture of your mother or something like that. But anyway, so he's in the ring and Savage is sitting there and he's like, all jacked up. And man, he used to do the freak out. He was a whole, man, his character was really, it was him. He lived the gimmick, And anyway, he said something like, hey, we might have the same dad. And he took that photo from Lanny and he said, but that's not my mother. That's a picture of a whore right there. And he broke that picture. Yeah, it was like holy shit, man. I think he broke the picture on a fan's head too. He jumped out and cracked a fan with it or something. It's just one of these crazy things. They turn it into an angle. So nepotism there in ICW. I know it wasn't on the page there, but we left the Ganyas. Now we're into the Papos. But yeah, they probably that worked out good for their family. The Macho Man went on to be a huge star in the world of wrestling, and Lanny did pretty good for himself too. Didn't become the big star that Randy was, but he was definitely. But they kayfabed it for a long time too. And when they got to New York at some point, people probably thought, oh, unless they lived in the caves somewhere, they didn't care if Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo were brothers.
Yeah.
If their mom had ran some, outlaw promotion in, Kentucky and some parts of West Virginia and Tennessee and Missouri, they just, good stuff. And shout out to Rip Rogers, man. He worked for them. And Bob Orton Jr. had a part of that company at some time. At some point, we know that. And I guess, anyway, let's move on. I happen to know this next person. It's been a year since I've talked to him. Why don't you introduce him and tell him what you think and why you got him on the bad?
All right. So the next one is going to be Eric Watts, son of Cowboy Bill Watts. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the Eric Watts that works for Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So please don't drive up here and punch me or something. So Eric Watts, on paper, should have been a pretty good push for his dad. Eric Watts was an athlete. He's a big guy. He kept getting pushed, and he was just boring as fuck, Bobby. Just boring.
I don't know. I'm gonna tell you this. Eric Watts was a hell of a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
Always talked to me when I was in WCW. He didn't go around acting like a big star. He didn't go around acting cocky or arrogant or anything like that. We used to talk because he played football at the University of Louisville, and I knew he was a good athlete and stuff, and he had a good body. I just don't know what happened. He was getting the pushes. It's almost like not to put him in the same category, but Brad Armstrong, every time he started getting a push, seemed like something happened and he'd stay at the mid card.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not a dig towards Brad because you and I both think the world of Brad Armstrong's talent and families. The same thing with Eric. I think he was getting them pushes, but like you said, it just. Who was paying attention to it,
Yeah.
When you had guys there that were already established stars, Sting and Flair and those guys, and then you had the NWO come in, or outsiders come in, then the NWO thing. I just don't think that he could have elevated past mid card, and I it never did, obviously, but it's just one of those things like should have even got the push to begin with. I think you should have at least got into the business from there, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then, excuse me, your own athleticism, your own ability to talk and interview, your body, maybe getting involved in some more serious storylines or something like that. I don't know. It just never seemed to happen for him, man.
Well, it's just one of those ones. And of course, then you also have the perception, just like fucking, of course he's getting pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Look who his dad is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true. Well, you know what? Here, this one, I'm going to go off script for a second. Bobby, do you know who the greatest wrestler on the planet is? Shane McMahon.
There you go.
He can sit behind a desk for 10 years, then come out of retirement and beat their upcoming 25-year-old talent and, go win a tournament in Saudi Arabia after 8 years of not doing a damn thing. And look, I mean, you know why he won? Well, look who his dad is. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have a work ethic or anything, but...
Oh, yeah, can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
And he takes a crazy-ass bump or whatever, but then again, but I see your point. Well, point well made, point well taken. That's very good. And I don't know what you're talking about off script. Come on, man. We ain't scripted. You know that, man. All right, so I'm going to jump to this next one. Just throw it out there so we know how we're going to end this deal.
Yeah.
And as I'll put Garrett Bishop out there, and I don't know a whole lot about him other than I did see him years ago and haven't seen him since. And I thought he had a good build. Talked okay. Look, I don't know what he did in the ring. So anyway, Garrett Bischoff, tell me, and we'll just kind of go from there. What kind of push and where's he at? Because I seem like I remember him getting to WWE, but did he or not? I don't know.
Well, I only did some quick research because I was actually shocked that Eric Bischoff's son went into wrestling. I mean, I probably shouldn't have been, but apparently he got a big push during that period of time in TNA. You know, that
That's
time.
why I remember that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if was the guy talented or not. Couldn't tell you. Didn't see him wrestle. But I can tell you after Eric Bischoff had his ego flare up in the 90s, anything he does in wrestling, everybody's going to look at like, of course you're pushing your kid.
Yeah.
You're a one-trick pony. You keep doing the same shit over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then what I could tell is he basically went from TNA to the Indies, and he took a couple years off. Then, you know, that's where he started working the indie dates.
Yeah, that's kind of. I thought at one point he went to WWE. I'm not sure how much TV exposure they gave him or didn't give him. I know he wasn't on the main roster, to my knowledge, but it seemed like he was under contract, and maybe they just didn't do anything with him. I could be wrong on that. But, yeah, like I said, he just kind of, and maybe he's still under contract somewhere. I don't know.
It could be.
But obviously, like you said, there's a reason why he got the initial push at TNA back in the day, you know. So, I don't know. We mentioned, several other families. Like I said, we mentioned Armstrong. Well, is there nepotism there? I think that's all good. You know, got 4 sons from Bullet Bob, and they all done quite well for themselves in the wrestling business. You know, there's a lot of different. Like I said, we mentioned the Poffos, and hell, we're probably missing a bunch of other people. But this is just kind of some people we put together here that we thought, okay, let's see what we can do with it. Before we get to this last one, did we leave anyone off? Who am I not thinking of that comes to mind that we may or should have mentioned maybe? And I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden.
I'm sure. Well, you know what? Here's one that shocked me. I didn't know Greg Valentine was the son of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't know how that story plays out, how true it is, but I guess he showed up on Johnny Valentine's steps and said, "Hey, I'm your son, you know, and I'm here to be trained or whatever, you know, or here to wrestle." I don't know, but I don't know what kind of situation they had. But yeah,
I had no idea.
It could be one of them things where beat the hell out of him, and he'll make it on his own. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? If that's the situation, then Greg Valentine, you know, done pretty damn good for himself. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Greg Valentine had a hell of a career, and he should have been in wrestling. I mean, just based on a handful of things. Yeah. But,
I'm just saying, how many people, though, have told their sons, or, you know, I don't want you in this business, and said, hey, break his leg, you know, or break his arm, or keep kayfabe him or something, you know, to keep him out of the business. I mean, and then they didn't go into the business because, you know, Daddy said no.
Exactly.
So anyway,
I have to assume that from a promoter standpoint, back in the past, getting somebody's kid was a good deal because you didn't have to smarten anybody up. They probably did, you know, they probably knew a little something coming in, even though just because your dad was a wrestler doesn't mean you were smart necessarily, but you know, because like Nick Bockwinkel's dad was a pro wrestler. You just, you know, you got to look at like who some of the people were. But when you get
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, but when you look at like when the promoters' kids get in, like, I think the best thing they could probably do is go work for somebody else because, you know, look, my first plumbing job, I worked for my dad for 6 months, and that fucking sucked. I would have much rather gone and worked somebody else because no matter what, if something went wrong, it was blamed on me because I'm the foreman's kid. And, you know, just all that kind of shit. You know, I got
it's no bed of roses, man, to be the promoter's son or the wrestler's the son or whatever.
Yeah.
But here's a couple we didn't go into great detail on. Of course, that's the Jarretts. We just, you know, we talked about, only because we had them on the program last week. We had, you know, grandson of Teeny on here.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got Jerry, and then Jeff. We didn't mention the Wyndhams. We didn't.
Oh, the Wyndhams,
We've talked about them
yeah.
in the past. A little bit about look at that family. How many people. A couple of sons, a couple of son-in-laws, kind of like with the Harts, right up there. And we mentioned Armstrong, just people that got involved, because of the dad or the father was involved,
Yep.
And I guess, are we looking at third generation wrestlers on a couple of the of them or not? Of the Wyndhams, maybe a couple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sure we left someone off, but I know you got one more, and you wanted to bring us up, and I just had a little story I want to tell you. It took place, and we'll wrap things up.
All right. So, this one is going to be mixed, but I'm going to start with the one I wrote down, and then we'll expand from there.
Absolutely.
David Flair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you worked with David Flair.
Yeah. So I just say this. Okay. He had a son, Ric Flair's son, David. He had a son named Reed that sadly passed away a few years ago. And from my understanding, he was a very good amateur wrestler and was making waves in professional wrestling, and was tragedy struck. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Charlotte has obviously done very good for herself. I mean, I think she played collegiate volleyball. She's obviously very, very talented. She's main evented a damn WrestleMania, So with that said, David Flair was just a good kid. He was a young kid, and they got him involved in professional wrestling. I don't know how bad he wanted to be there. I don't think he wanted to be there all that bad. And he was nothing in the back except for courteous and polite, and he walked on eggshells because he knew why he was there. Okay, let me establish that right away. He knew that, first of all, hey, I'm in over my head here, the guy tried. I would go to show, obviously get there to the shows in WCW. You have to be there at least an hour prior to the show. On TVs, pay-per-views, you're there like 5 hours ahead. Stuff like Nitros, you're there 4 hours ahead of the show. It's all Thunders, you're there 3 hours ahead, whatever the schedule was. And I saw guys in the ring working with David. I saw Fit Finley working with him one, and I'm thinking, if you can't get this from Fit Finley, if you can't get this from Bobby Eaton, you're not going to get it, kid. You know what I'm saying? So he tried, but the ability wasn't really there. So I went over up to Minneapolis to do a TV taping, and several guys got sent home. I think they had an athletic commission up there is why some guys got sent home. I'm not sure. 4 or 5 guys that was scheduled to do Thunder on Thursday got sent home. It wasn't a disciplinary thing or anything like that. It's just like, I don't know if they didn't. It wasn't anything like major. Like they didn't fail a drug test. They weren't sick. It was just something. Maybe athletic commission, some over high blood pressure. I really don't know why. About 4 or 5 people got sent home, and they asked myself and Scott Armstrong and Brad, a couple other people, Bobby Duncombe Jr., anyway, a handful of us to stay over after TV. They said, we need you through Friday, and we'll give you an advance on your pays and be at these shows. So, of course, got to do what you got to do. And so I ended up with another Thunder, because the first Thunder I got on, Brian Clark, Brian Adams got me on, Big Crush. I'd worked with him on down in Orlando at Universal, and he enjoyed the match so much, he personally asked for me to make his debut match on Thursday Night Thunder.
Oh,
and
nice.
I did. Now, that was a really good, actually has a really good match. He gave me quite a bit. Terry Taylor said, how the hell do you get these big guys to sell for you, Bobby? And I said, I just work, Terry. So, but anyway, professionalism, courtesy, they know. But anyway, and he knows that. But David Flair, so I had to wrestle him on a Thursday Night Thunder. And that's Arn Anderson, even though I may be, and this may be a reason why I'm Arn Anderson's favorite fucking enhancement talent right here, by God. So I remember it's in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Scotty Armstrong and myself had ridden over. Actually, me, Scott, and Brad rode in one car, and like I said, Nick Patrick and Bobby Duncombe and someone else they rode another car. Anyway, fun day in Minnesota at the Mall of America, I'll say that. But we go to La Crosse the next day or whatever, and I see my name on the board with David Flair. So at La Crosse, they had a big bus outside that was the war room where you go in and get your finishes and stuff. And like I said, I may be Arn's favorite enhancement talent, but David Flair is apparently the godson of Double A, Arn Anderson. So I go up there, and this is towards the end of, let's see, this is probably in 99, probably August, September, fall of 99, something like that. And so Kevin Nash is part of the booking. I had already spoken to him. I went to Lexington at Rupp Arena, try to work out things for my contract, just seeing where things were going, And Arn was kind of my age at that time. Terry was, and Arn was. He told me to go see Kevin before that. So I talked to these guys, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a gentleman, like a man. We just talked. So I said, Arn, I said, anything? And David wasn't in, he didn't come with me. I just went. I said, I'm going to go straighten this out right now because I don't know what I expected of this guy because I've seen him, and I know I'm going to have to put him over. So I go up to Arn. He's on the bus. We're sitting there talking. And I said, Arn, what do you want me to do? He said, Bobby, the less you give him, the better you'll look. And I said, okay. I said, I could do it. He said, just do what you got to do. And he said, it'll be taken care of. And I said, okay. So that's hour and a half, 2 hours for the show, whatever. I'm hanging in the back, and now it's time to go get finished. So I walk back there, and I speak to Arn, and he says, Bobby, I'm telling you, the less you give him, the better off you'll look. He said, here's what you're going to do. He said, put him in a corner somewhere at the end. He said, put the boots to him, but be looking down or away. He said, we're sending, this is Thursday Night Thunder, okay?
Okay.
And he said, we're sending Ming down.
Oh, shit.
And when you turn around, Ming will give you the death grip. And you, as you're going down, David will just roll you up. And I said, man, that's fine with me. Not a problem. So we get in the ring. Boom, bada, boom, bada, boom. I'm all over David Flair because, like I said, the less you. Now, I'm not trying to kill him or beat him up. I'm just beating him up.
Yeah.
Just saying that. And finally, I get him in a turnbuckle. I said, grab a headlock. So he grabs the headlock. Of course, I pick him up, belly to back suplex. Boom. 1, 2, let him kick out. And I stomp the fuck out of him again. He's got no offense. I'm just eating him up, man. Looking great on Thunder, right? Woo, yeah. And I put him in a corner where the entrance ramp's at. I've got my hands on the top rope looking down, and I'm putting the boots to him. Boom, boom, boom. And you hear the crowd and people, and I look up, and there's Ming, and he puts the Tongan death grip on me and holds it. And I go down, and I think David puts me into figure 4, and that's the end of the match, okay? Because I'm out. I can't tap out. I'm just out from the Tongan death grip. All right, so I know that's being taped for next week's Thunder. I'm all excited. David Flair in the back's nothing but professional. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Arn is like, Bobby, thank you so much. That's very good, very professional, what have you. Ming, him and I, we always spoke. He's like, Bobby, thank you. Thank you, guys. You know what I'm saying? I remember Scotty Armstrong and myself riding back to Minneapolis to catch our flights the next day. And it's 3 hours away, whatever. And Scotty said, Bobby, he said, do you realize, man, what a big push that was for you? He said, man, you look so good doing it, And he goes, you didn't get beat. He said, the monster of the fucking company came out and put his finisher on you. He said, you didn't get beat. He said, the monster, Ming, put his gimmick on you, man, and you went out. I was like, yeah, that's the way I look at it. That's pretty good. Well, I'm at home the next week because I got the next week off, right? Mm-hmm. That's the good thing. And David was nothing but good. I'm just saying that. So we're just talking about, again, all right, here's a guy that Nepotism, obviously it didn't work out for him. And so the next week when Thunder comes on, man, I'm all stoked going, I know that match is going to be. Man, they fucking put a match on there, and he was standing. They preempted my match, and they taped something else. It never aired.
Well,
there's your nepotism.
Shit. Yeah.
Flair must have seen it or whatever, but I know this. Arn liked it, and I'll tell you this, by God, the next day at the airport, DDP come up to me. He said, Bobby, thanks for taking care of the kid last night. I took care of David Flair, believe me, okay? But, and I'll tell you what they did. The following week, what came on, David Flair was in a hallway, and here come a couple of the horsemen, And Chris Benoit ended up putting him in a crippler face lock in the hallway, and that's what they put on instead to build up for another match. And you know what I'm saying? They made David Flair tap out in a hallway to Benoit or whatever to set up something, and I'm like, fuck me running backwards.
Somebody,
man.
somebody called an audible on a storyline or something.
Someone did because David Flair, and nothing against him, nothing against the Nature Boy or whatever, but I think probably Bischoff or someone just said, hey man, this kid ain't got enough TV time here to make him look that good, because I looked that good that night. But I done it because my main man and my aide at that time, Double A, Arn Anderson, said, Bobby, the less you give him, the better you're going to look. And I took him to school, baby. I took him to school.
That's legit.
Yeah. I took him to school. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I
have to think that, like in the case of like David Flair, when they were like, I don't know how they met or how it got to, hey, David's coming to work here at WCW. I'd have to imagine David would go talk to his dad and be like, hey, this is going on, blah, blah, blah. And Ric Flair's probably like, look, it's a fucking paycheck. Take it. They're going to pay you a ton. Grab it.
Yep.
Can I borrow $20? That's what I see happening.
Yeah. But anyway, let's wrap things up, man. I know I just want to end on that story because that's a good story. That's true. It had happened. That's telling the truth. I'm not exaggerating or anything. But again, it goes back to, when we do these podcasts and you introduce me as Double B and this and that, a lot of times behind the scenes, you talk to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like here I am. I probably never have brought up Ming too many times on this.
No, not really.
Podcast, But man, I wrote about him in my first book, about him and how Barbarian and Ming took care of me when I was wrestling against Scotch Flat Norton one night. That was somewhere up north too. I don't think it was Minnesota. It was somewhere. But anyway, in the book, Pin Me, Pay Me, have Boots Will Travel. And you can get that at tinyurl.com/blazebook1. I tell a story about Ming and Barbarian, and I've talked to Barbarian in person a couple of times. Even I told him, I said, hey, I wrote this story, I put you over in it, and rightfully so. And my second book is called I Kicked Out The Educational Wrestler. I Kicked Out Onto The Educational Wrestler. You can get that book at tinyurl.com/blazebook2. And that's my plug for this week, just saying I tell some of these stories in my books. But what I was getting at here in the back there, you interact with a lot of people, and there's a lot more stories out there. And hopefully I'm going to write some more of these stories in my next book,
Yeah.
I think the working title is, Hey Ref, that was a quick count, or Hey Ref, that was a fast count. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but it's involving life and, as you're getting older and different things, looking back on your career and fun and stuff. But anyway, speaking of books, next week, what do we have coming next week?
Next week, we have the author of Lance by Chance, Vinnie Barry. But what's Lance by Chance about, Bobby?
It is about the kayfabed cousin of the Von Erichs when they brought in the supposed cousin of Kevin, Kerry, David, and all of them. Waldo Von Erich was the kayfabe brother, I guess, of Fritz. Mm-hmm. So they brought in, and Kevin is totally, and we're going to bring this up next week, he was totally against it. I think he was one of the only ones that was really spoke out about it. They brought in a kayfabe cousin called Lance Von Erich, and he really wasn't, he was walking across a golf course, basically, and someone said, hey, you ever thought about professional wrestling? And he might have even said, no, I'm not sure. I read the book, just kind of letting you know where this is going to go. And next thing you know, he ends up being one of Von Erich's cousin on the big stage, with all these big stars. And anyway, it's an interesting read. We're not having Lance Von Erich on here, just so you know, straight up, but we're having author Vinnie Barry has been in contact with both Jeremy and myself and sent us a copy of the book, and I took the time to read it, and Jeremy's finishing it up this week, and we're going to just talk about that. Because it's an interesting story. It really is. I think he was very reluctant about the wrestling business, but we're gonna find out for sure next week just how involved he was, how he got over, how he didn't like getting over, how he got out of professional wrestling, what all this guy did. But it's just a pretty good story about, guys walk across a golf course, next thing you know, you're fucking in one of the biggest wrestling families in history, professional wrestling. There's your nepotism right there.
There's
Although he wasn't kin, he was brought in, and we'll go from there. But yeah, that's next week's program.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that, we were talking about that filthy Tom Lawler earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the bits that I saw was like he was feuding with the Von Erich brothers, and he comes out and he grabs a microphone and he goes, guys, those guys, they're a bunch of phonies. I found a real Von Erich. And he goes, here comes Waldo Von Erich's son, Rip. And this guy comes out, little guy, not little like mass wise, but like short, not like super cut up or anything, with some of Kerry Von Erich's gear looking stuff on, like tassels and shit. And they got the production music version of Stranglehold playing. He comes out and he's like, high-fiving people in the audience, and they're in Texas. And and then Tom Lawler takes him in there and just fucking works his ass. Yeah, it was kind of funny just seeing like another quote unquote Waldo Von Erich's sons in there.
That's good stuff, man.
Oh, it was pretty good. Well, Bobby, I think that's going to wrap it for this week.
Yeah, let's wrap it up, man. Listen, you people out there, please take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Sometimes I can remind myself of that myself. So, Professor, thank you for this week. Appreciate the notes and the input and producing and putting this podcast out for us. So long from Bobby Blaze. Jeremy, close us out.
All right. Well, everybody, for the late Tex Johnson, myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and Double B Bobby Blaze, bye-bye, everybody.